The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the high stone walls of Ikenna Pharmaceuticals estates, turning the marble driveway into a shimmering expanse of white. A gentle breeze brought little relief, stirring dust motes in lazy spirals. Security guards in crisp navy uniforms paced dutifully at the entrance, scanning every vehicle and pedestrian for potential trouble. Then came the sudden commotion. A woman, clutching her swollen belly, staggered into view from the dirt road beyond the gates. Her clothes were worn, stained. Her flip-flops flipped awkwardly on her feet. She looked nothing like the well-groomed staff who crossed these thresholds every day. "A wheel over there," a guard barked into his radio. His partner rushed forward, hand over his eyes to block the glare. Awele's gait faltered as another contraction struck. She gasped, fingers digging into her abdomen. Without warning, her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the pristine marble surface, her head cracking sharply against the stone. A muffled cry escaped her lips. The guards leapt into action. One called for medical assistance, another crouched beside her, pressing a gloved hand against her back. Awele's breathing was ragged. Warm trickles of amniotic fluid soaked the front of her dress and pooled around her on the marble. "Somebody help her," the guard shouted. "She's bleeding, or her water's broken." In the control booth overlooking the driveway, the security chief, Mr. Okoro, stared in disbelief at the live feed. "Who is she?" "She doesn't have a clearance badge," he barked, slapping a button on the intercom. "Let her in, medical emergency." Moments later, Chuka Ikenna emerged from the meadow of palms leading to his private wing. His tailored suit jacket hung open, his tie loosened. He had been on his way to a board meeting. He froze when he saw the woman on the ground. Mistaking her for an intruder at first, his brows knitted in annoyance, only to smooth into concern as he noticed her distress. "Awele," he murmured absently, startling everyone. The name had slipped out unbidden. The guards exchanged puzzled glances. One man, Nurse Amaka, hired under contract from the company's health services, recognized the telltale signs of labor. "Sir," she said, voice calm but urgent, "we need to get her inside." Chuka knelt. Despite his renowned composure, his heart hammered. "Put her over my shoulder," he commanded, scanning for a stretcher. "Help me carry her into the guest wing." As the guards complied, Awele moaned, her eyelids fluttering. Somewhere between consciousness and pain, she registered the opulent carvings on the gate pillars. She smelled antiseptic and fresh grass. And she heard his voice again, closer now, warm with concern she had long forgotten existed in any human heart. The grand foyer of the mansion gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Marble floors reflected the gilded ceiling, and portraits of Ikenna ancestors lined the walls. Chuka supported Awele's weight as they crossed the threshold. The security staff formed a protective corridor behind them. "Set her down gently on the chaise," Chuka instructed, sliding off his jacket to cradle her head against soft cushions. His ring, a heavy band of white gold, pressed into her arm. Nurse Amaka checked Awele's vitals while Corporal Ease hovered, his walkie-talkie crackling. "Sir, should I notify social services? She's unregistered, no ID on her." Chuka shook his head. "No, not yet." He glanced toward the wide staircase, where a stepmother, Madame Ikenna, was descending in a ripple of ivory lace. Her eyes, sharp as hawks, fell on the scene. "Chuka," she said coolly. "Explain." He rose, brushing dust from his trousers. "Madam, she's in labor. I found her unconscious outside the gates. I'm bringing her and the baby into this house." Ikenna's lips curved in a thin line. "You can't harbor a street beggar in our home. The board will have my head if this scandal spreads." "She's human," Chuka replied quietly. "And she needs help." Madame Ikenna's gaze flicked to Awele's pale face, the sheen of sweat on her brow. Then back to her son. "Very well," she said with a sigh calculated to suggest concession. "She can stay in the guest wing until medical clears her. I'll handle the PR." Chuka nodded once, curtly. He crouched beside Awele again, taking her hand. Her fingers twined weakly around his. His chest tightened at the warmth of her skin beneath his palm. "What's your name?" he whispered, brushing hair from her forehead. Tell me you're okay. Awele drifted between pain-hung breaths. I'm coming, she whispered, voice hoarse. A distant cry escaped her lips. Nurse Amaka shook her head. She's fully engaged. We need to move. Chuka rose, eyes dark with determination. Prepare a delivery room in the mansion's clinic, he ordered. I want the best doctors here within the hour. Yes, sir. Amaka hurried out as attendants wheeled in a hospital bed on its rolling gurney. Chuka stood by the doorway, hand pressed to the cool wood, listening to Awele's labored breathing echoing through the corridor. He had never felt so connected to a stranger, his world of boardrooms and press releases drifting far away. The suite designated as the makeshift delivery room was lavish. Plush carpets, silk curtains tied back to reveal manicured lawns, a vanity stocked with luxury skincare. But today it bore the harsh scent of antiseptic and looming tension. Dr. Martin Obi, Ikenna's personal physician, and two midwives hovered at Awele's side. They conferred in hushed tones as she whimpered, one contraction after another racking her body. Chuka leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, jaw clenched. I've never seen a patient present like this, Dr. Obi murmured, checking her charts. Unregistered, no medical history. And she's in advanced labor. Midwife Ada frowned. The baby's heart rate is a little erratic. We should consider a cesarean if things don't stabilize. Chuka's pulse drummed in his ears. Do whatever is necessary. I don't want any risk to her or the child. Outside the sliding door, the butler, Mr. Onyekachi, hovered anxiously. He opened the door a crack. Sir, Madam Ifunanya warns that she'll go to the media if this isn't handled discreetly. Chuka waved him away. Let her do what she must. In the next moment, a loud snap, a gasp from Awele. Warm fluid spurted, splattering on the white sheets. The midwives murmured, gathering supplies. Something in Awele's cry made Chuka step forward. Gently, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Her eyes snapped open, dark, wide with fear. But when they locked with his, she seemed to settle, as though finding an anchor in his gaze. Breathe with me, he said softly. In, Dan out. Her chest rose and fell in time with his voice. She grasped his hand through the sterile glove of the midwife. Thank you, she whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. The sound of approaching footsteps heralded Madame Ifunanya's arrival. She entered with Nurse Ikenna, her personal aide, trailing behind. She surveyed the scene with thinly veiled contempt. Sir, you know what this will do to our reputation, she hissed, voice low but venomous. This beggar will ruin everything. Chuka squared his shoulders. She's not just a beggar, he said quietly. She's a mother. Ifunanya's smile was a blade, and one we cannot afford. Do you want every scandal sheet in Lagos swarming here tomorrow? He met her gaze without flinching. I won't let you bully me on this. She opened her mouth to reply, but a sudden, anguished cry from Awele cut her off. The midwives sprang into action. The baby was crowning. Instinctively, Chuka reached to steady her hip. Awele clenched her teeth and gripped his hand like a lifeline. Chuka, she gasped. Please. And with that, the room held its breath as the final push began. Chapter 4. The Guest Room Gamble. 2 hours later, the newborn's first cries echoed through the quiet corridors of the mansion. Awele lay back on the bed, exhaustion and relief painting her features. Sweat matted her hair, and tears streaked her cheeks as the midwives cleaned the baby. Chuka stood nearby, white coat discarded, sleeves rolled up in solidarity. His shirt was damp with her sweat. Dr. Obi announced softly, It's a healthy girl. Everything went smoothly. He handed the baby, wrapped in a soft blanket, to Awele. The infant blinked up at her mother, tiny fists curled. Awele's lips trembled. Ziora, she whispered, naming her immediately. Ziora, the beginning, a name she'd chosen in her dreams of this day. Chuka knelt beside the bed, gazing at the child. She's perfect. His voice cracked. In all his life, he had never felt such awe. Madame Ifunanya stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded. You've made your point, she said curtly. She stays. But I want full control of the narrative. No leaks. Chuka nodded once, absently stroking Ziora's cheek. Understood. When she left, the midwives and nurse staff exhaled collectively. The butler brought tea and warm towels. The staff began to sterilize the room. Awele watched Chuka as he gently placed a blanket over the baby. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice hoarse. He hesitated, searching for the right words. When I saw you out there, I saw someone hurt, and I couldn't walk away. He paused. I saw someone I thought I knew. His eyes clouded. You look like my brother's fiancé. Ken used to love someone like you. Awele's breath caught. She stared at him, heart pounding. Before she could respond, the door creaked and Oma slipped in. Her face was pale but determined. Oma, Awele breathed. You came. Oma's eyes fell on Ziora. She's beautiful, she said, voice trembling. Then she gave Chuka a curt nod. Thank you for saving her life. Chuka rose, smoothing his trousers. Let's keep this between us for now, he said quietly. I'll make sure Awele and Ziora have everything they need. Oma glanced at Awele, concern flickering. You'd better rest. I'll stay with you. As the midday sun dipped behind the mansion's turrets, Chuka walked back down the corridor alone. He felt the weight of everyone's expectations bearing down on him, the Empire, his stepmother, the public's hungry gaze. Yet he also felt something new, the fierce, protective spark of a father or something close enough to it. That evening, the guest suite was hushed except for Awele's soft sobs. She sat on the edge of the bed, Ziora swaddled against her chest, tears staining the blanket. Oma sat beside her, offering gentle words and a cool cloth. Tell me again, Awele whispered, voice small. Why did he step in? Oma looked away, troubled. Because he remembers, she said softly. He remembers Ken. Awele closed her eyes and let herself drift back to the memory of that fateful night, 2 years ago. Rain hammered against the roof of the small 3-room flat where Awele lived with Oma. The storm rattled windows as thunder growled overhead. Inside, the single lamp's light flickered over cracked walls. A nurse's uniform hung limply in the corner, Awele's old attire from a life she'd lost. That night, she had been carrying Ken's baby. Ken, Chuka's younger brother. Handsome, charming, the golden boy of the Ikenna family. He'd swept her off her feet with promises of marriage, love, a future. Awele, fresh out of nursing school, believed him. She gave her heart and her body to him. Weeks later, he vanished. No calls, no messages. Then the eviction notice came. Vacate within 48 hours, it said, stamped with the Ikenna family seal. His betrayal shattered her. She lost her job, her home, and soon, her dignity. That was when she took to the streets, subsisting on charity and memories of happier days. As the contractions of her second labor approached, she remembered begging for help, remembered the cold shoulder of strangers, the harsh words, the empty stares, remembered the fear that her daughter might die alone in the gutter. And then, the vision of the mansion gates, as beautiful as they were unforgiving. She'd crawled toward them with every ounce of strength, praying for a miracle. Back in the present, Awele opened her eyes to find Oma smoothing a fingertip over Ziora's cheek. Chuka's voice drifted down the hallway, a quiet conversation with Mr. Onyekachi. He spoke of building a foster home, of naming it Ziora's Haven. Tears welled in Awele's eyes at the sound of her daughter's name forming plans of hope. She clutched the baby close. Thank you, she whispered to the empty room, gratitude and resolve mingling in her chest. Oma laid a hand on her shoulder. He's not just a stranger, she said gently. He's your family's other son and now your daughter's protector. Awele inhaled sharply. Protectors were few in her world. But for the first time since Ken's betrayal, she dared to believe that love and justice might find her again. And that night, as Ziora drifted to sleep in her arms, Awele allowed herself a single, trembling smile. Late that night, the mansion's corridors lay silent, except for the soft whir of security cameras and hushed footsteps. Chuka retraced his steps to the guest wing, heart still pounding from the day's upheaval. He found Awele sitting up in bed, Ziora cradled at her breast, eyes wide in the lamplight. Awele, he began gently, pausing in the doorway. She looked up, exhaustion and wonder mingling on her face. Chuka, she breathed, thank you for today, for everything. He pulled up a chair and sat beside her, glancing at the baby's tiny fingers curled around her thumb. She's remarkable, he murmured. She's your mirror. Awele's lips trembled. She came from so much tragedy. I thought I'd lost everything. Her voice cracked. But now, Chuka leaned forward. I need to explain something. He hesitated, seeking the words. When you said Ken's name in the foyer, I felt a shock. My brother, Ken, he died 2 years ago. He was reckless, but I never imagined he'd betrayed you. Awele stiffened. He promised me the world. I believed him. Then I woke up one morning to eviction papers and his silence. Tears welled. I thought I was alone. Chuka's jaw tightened. You're not alone anymore. Ziora is your daughter and my niece. That makes you family. He placed his hand over hers. I want us to protect each other. Awele searched his face, disbelieving. Why? You barely know me. His gaze was steady. I know you fought to bring her into the world. That's enough. In that quiet moment, a fragile trust formed. The mansion's opulence fell away. They were just two wounded people bound by a child's arrival. The next morning, Awele awoke to sunlight filtering through heavy curtains. Ziora dozed peacefully in a bassinet at the foot of the bed. She sat up, every muscle aching, and reached for her phone. No messages, only calls she hadn't answered. A gentle knock sounded. Oma entered, carrying a tray. Good morning. The nurses are here to check on you in an hour. Awele offered a wan smile. Thank you. She set down the tray and reached for her water. As she drank, her mind drifted back to the months before labor. 6 months ago, Awele had discovered she was pregnant again, this time by Ken. The news filled her with joy, but also dread. She knew her family would demand an abortion rather than face the scandal. Ken's reputation was everything. So she hid at her mother's village home, hoping to carry the baby in secret. Her mother had died when Awele was young. The village offered no real refuge. Word traveled fast. One afternoon, she returned from the market to find a weeping neighbor and a letter pinned to her door. Vacate immediately. Court summons follows. It bore the Ikenna seal. Fleeing with her belly rounded, she'd walked hundreds of miles, begging for food and shelter, until her strength failed. That was when she collapsed outside the gates. Awele blinked back to the present as the door opened. Nurse Amaka entered, clipboard in hand. How are you feeling? She asked kindly. Tired, but better, Awele replied. Amaka checked her vitals and smiled. You did wonderfully. And, did you sleep well? Awele hesitated. She glanced at Ziora. I was remembering. Amaka nodded. It's normal to recall the journey. You were so brave. She scribbled notes. Your blood loss was minimal. I'll release you tomorrow, once you've rested more. As the nurse left, Awele closed her eyes. This hidden chapter of her pregnancy, filled with fear, hope, and loneliness, had shaped her. Here, in this haven, she vowed it would not define her or her daughter's future. By midday, news of the birth had rippled through the estate. Staff whispered in hushed tones. The heir had acknowledged a niece. Madame Ifunania's office was abuzz with damage control plans. But none reached the delivery suite, where Awele and Chuka prepared for a private family moment. Chuka entered carrying lunch trays, chicken stew and jollof rice, Awele's favorite. He set them on the bedside table, smiling shyly. I thought you might be hungry. Awele's stomach growled. You remembered. She chuckled, tears glinting in her eyes. She reached for a spoon. He handed it to her. Today marks a new chapter for all of us. He paused, studying her face. I know this isn't the fairy tale I once believed in, but perhaps it's more real. Awele met his gaze. A fairy tale without the prince and princess lineages, she teased. He laughed softly, more like a story of survival. They ate in companionable silence, Ziora cooing nearby. Chuka gently lifted the baby, offering her to Awele. Your turn. Awele rocked Ziora in her arms, feeling warmth spread through her chest. She's perfect, she whispered. Chuka watched, emotions softening his features. She is. As they settled into a fragile peace, neither noticed the paper plane sliding under the door. It bore a single typed line. This family's secret will destroy us all. Silence fell. That afternoon, Awele was resting when the door burst open. Madame Ikenna strode in, face ashen with fury, flanked by 2 lawyers. Chuka rose from his chair, alarmed. You idiot child, Ikenna hissed at her son. Do you realize what you've done? You've tainted this family's legacy. Chuka squared his shoulders. I've saved a life. She ignored him, turning on Awele. And you, she spat, you'll leave this house by tomorrow, or else I'll call social services to take that child from you. Awele recoiled, clutching Ziora. You can't. Ikenna sneered. Watch me. She handed Awele a folder. These are custody papers. Sign here. Barrister Ibuka, summoned by Ikenna, advanced with a pen. Once signed, the Ikenna Trust will assume guardianship. Chuka stepped between them. No, his voice rang with authority. She will not sign anything. Ikenna's eyes narrowed. You dare oppose me? He met her glare evenly. If you take her, or the baby, you take me too. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then Ikenna turned on her heel. You'll regret this. She paused at the door. This isn't over. As the door slammed, Chuka sank into a chair, head in hands. Awele rose, swaying with shock. Oma rushed to steady her. Chuka looked up, eyes haunted. I'm sorry. Awele shook her head, tears of anger and relief mingling. No, thank you. She hugged Ziora fiercely. He's my daughter. We'll fight. And fight they would. That night, dark clouds gathered over Lagos. Rain swept across the city in sheets. Inside the mansion, electricity flickered as backup generators hummed. At the gates, Awele and Ziora huddled beneath an umbrella, provided grudgingly by the guards, while Chuka stood in the rain, palms pressed against the cold metal of the gate. These are your orders, sir, the head guard said, shifting uncomfortably. A legal notice in hand, he recited the eviction mandate from social services. Awele's teeth chattered. Please, she pleaded, just one night under shelter? Chuka's jaw clenched. He turned to the guard. Take her back inside. The guard hesitated, then nodded. He pushed open the gate. Awele stumbled forward, tears mingling with raindrops. Ziora whimpered. Inside the foyer, lights were dim. Madame Ikenna stood under the chandelier, arms folded. Enjoy your night, she said, voice tight. Then she turned and vanished down the hall. Chuka helped Awele to her feet. Come on. He wrapped his jacket around both of them. They entered an empty banquet hall, tables stacked, chairs folded. Awele sank against a wall, clutching Ziora. Why are you doing this? She whispered. He knelt beside her. Because no one deserves to be homeless in the rain. He pressed a kiss to Ziora's forehead. I've arranged for you two to stay in a local women's shelter, fully funded by me. Awele's eyes widened. A shelter? Chuka nodded. It's not the mansion, but it's safe and dry. Outside, lightning cracked. The rain rattled windows like a warning. Awele wrapped her arms around Ziora, glancing at Chuka. You're risking everything. He smiled wryly. What's one empire against a mother and her child? In that storm-lashed hall, hope flickered amid the darkness. And as thunder rolled overhead, the three of them, stranger, child, and protector, faced the uncertain dawn together. By dawn, the video of Awele's eviction, umbrella in hand, Ziora strapped to her chest, had exploded across social media. Hashtags like Justice for Awele and Billionaire Shame trended on Twitter. Instagram Reels showed her drenched silhouette against the mansion gates, and TikTok influencers decried the cruelty. In the company's sleek PR office, screens blinked red with notifications. Chuka stormed in, flanked by his communications director, Ifani. "Pull every ounce of goodwill we have and throw it behind her," Chuka ordered, voice low but firm. "Offer her medical support, childcare, anything she needs. And halt any statements from my stepmother." Ifani nodded, already typing. "I'll draft an open letter from you apologizing for the treatment she received, take full responsibility, and announce a new foundation in her daughter's name." Chuka sank onto the leather sofa. "Make it heartfelt. No spin. Let the world see I'm on her side." Meanwhile, Awele awoke in the women's shelter to the soft hum of chatter. A volunteer handed her a tablet showing the video of her in tears, and Chuka's apology statement pinned at the top. Surreal relief flooded her. She swiped through comments, messages of support, links to crowdfunding pages, and even calls for Chuka to run for public office on a platform of social justice. Oma, visiting with hot tea, squeezed her hand. "They're calling him a hero," she whispered. "And you a survivor." Awele let the words settle. For the first time since she collapsed outside those gates, she felt seen and valued. That afternoon, Chuka strode into the boardroom, where Ikenna Pharmaceuticals directors had already convened. The long mahogany table gleamed under crystal lights. Portraits of past chairmen lined the walls. Madame Ikenna sat at the head, arms folded, flanked by the CFO and legal counsel. "Good afternoon," Chuka began, voice steady. "I hope you've all seen my statement regarding Awele and her daughter." Silence met him. The CFO cleared his throat. "Chuka, this is unprecedented. We could face lawsuits, stock fallout." Chuka cut him off. "Actually, our stock jumped 8% today on the back of positive public sentiment." He tapped his tablet to display graphs. "Our brand image is stronger because we did the right thing." Madame Ikenna's lips curled in contempt. "This is reckless idealism. Our investors expect stability, not social media theater." He met her gaze. "Our investors also care about ethics. And if you continue undermining this effort, I'll resign as CEO and let you face the fallout." A murmur rippled around the table. Chuka leaned forward. "This isn't about PR stunts. It's about correcting a wrong. Awele and Ziora are under my protection, and I intend to build something real, Ziora's haven." Madame Ikenna sat back, stunned. After a long pause, she snapped, "We will revisit this decision in a week." Chuka rose. "Very well. But until then, no further actions against Awele or her daughter." He turned on his heel and left. The room remained unnervingly quiet. His defiance had shaken even his most loyal allies. A week later, Chuka escorted Awele and Oma into a private conference room at the corporate clinic. A sleek device on the table held 2 vials. Nurse Amaka entered with Barrister Ibuka, whose face was inscrutable. "It's time," Ibuka said softly. "The results confirm the child's paternity, beyond doubt." He passed the vials to Chuka, who held one labeled child and the other Ikenna heir. The tension was palpable. Awele's hand trembled against her chest. Ibuka cleared his throat. "Ziora is Ken's daughter." But the test also revealed something else. Ken's genetic fingerprint shows markers linked to a hereditary disorder that the Ikenna Trust has concealed from shareholders. Gasps escaped from Oma and Awele. Chuka stiffened. "What disorder?" Ibuka tapped his tablet. "A rare blood-clotting mutation. It's not immediately life-threatening, but could incur massive liabilities if disclosed improperly." Madame Ikenna, summoned to the meeting at Chuka's insistence, entered, stone-faced. "You unnecessarily dragged me into this charade," she hissed at Chuka. He ignored her. Why was this hidden? She smoothed her dress. "To protect the company. A disclosure would have tanked us." Chuka's jaw clenched. "You gambled with people's lives for profit." Oma's voice rang out. "And you want to ruin this woman and her child to protect your empire?" Silence followed. Awele looked between them, tears in her eyes. "My daughter has the right to her medical history," she whispered. Chuka stepped forward and held her hand. "You're right. We'll set up a full medical fund for Ziora and all potential carriers. And we'll disclose the information to regulators. Madame Ikenna recoiled in horror. You can't. Chuka's gaze was steel. Watch me. Late that night, Awele awoke to a knock. Oma slipped into the room, a manila folder under her arm. I found the files, she whispered. Awele sat up, heart pounding. Together, they spread out documents, emails between Ikenna and hospital administrators, invoices paying off victims' families, and a memo outlining how to silence whistleblowers. The evidence was damning. Oma clicked through scanned receipts. She bribed dozens of families to sign NDAs after Ken's misdeeds. She even blackmailed some nurses. Awele's hands shook. All this time, I thought I was alone. Oma met her gaze. You're never alone again. We have the proof to bring her down. A sudden gust rattled the window. Awele closed her eyes. I don't want revenge, she said softly. I want justice for me, for the other victims, and for my daughter. Oma nodded. Then we'll take this to the authorities and the press. She tapped the folder. Tomorrow, we go public. Awele exhaled, steeling herself. Let them know the truth. A week later, the packed courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Cameras lined the back, reporters scribbled notes, and family members crowded the gallery. Awele entered with Chuka and Barrister Ebuka at her side. Madame Ikenna glided in, flanked by high-powered attorneys. The judge called the session to order. The air was electric as Ebuka rose for opening statements. Your Honor, he began, voice resonant. This case is about corporate malfeasance and the concealment of crimes. He laid out the evidence, eviction orders, hush money payments, genetic findings. My client, Mrs. Awele Okoro, was betrayed, and her child's health was put at risk, all to protect a family empire. Madame Ikenna's counsel countered, accusing Awele of trespass and defamation. But each rebuttal was undercut by the mountain of documents Oma had unearthed. When Awele took the stand, the room fell silent. She described her descent into homelessness, her lonely pregnancy, and the betrayal by the man she loved. Her voice wavered, but grew stronger as she spoke of carrying Ziora outside the gates, a child born into scandal, and finding unlikely sanctuary in Chuka's mansion. The defense tried to cast doubt, but the public's anger and the irrefutable evidence swayed the jury. As Awele exited the stand, she met Chuka's gaze. He offered a reassuring nod. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The foreperson stood. On charges of wrongful eviction, defamation, and corporate concealment, we find the defendant, Madame Ikenna, guilty on all counts. A stunned gasp rippled through the courtroom. Madame Ikenna's shoulders sagged. Awele felt tears of relief prick her eyes. Chuka squeezed her hand. The judge imposed heavy fines and ordered formal apologies. Importantly, he mandated that Ziora's haven be fully endowed by the Ikenna Trust and that a public registry of any genetic disorders be established. As the gavel fell, cameras flashed. Awele stepped into the sunlight, shielded by Chuka's umbrella. Together, they walked out, mother, daughter, and protector, into a future forged in truth and justice. The morning sun glittered off stock tickers across Lagos, but inside Ikenna Pharmaceuticals, the mood was grim. News outlets buzzed that sponsors and board members were quietly distancing themselves from the Ikenna name. Shares slid another 5%, and 5 major distributors suspended contracts pending ethical reviews. Chuka arrived at headquarters to find vacant desks and hushed conversations. He passed by an empty office once occupied by a senior VP who'd abruptly resigned. In the war room, lined with whiteboards annotated in urgent reds, his CFO sighed, rubbing weary eyes. Our liquidity is fine, the CFO reported, but reputational damage has investors jittery. We need a bold move. Chuka nodded. We already made the hardest choice, truth and justice over cover-ups. Now we rebuild trust by doing more good. He tapped his tablet. Today I'm announcing reinvestment in local clinics, expanding our free screening programs, and dedicating 10% of profits to Ziora's haven. Across town, media outlets ran the story side by side with footage from the courtroom victory. Headlines praised the billionaire who chose conscience and pharma heir's redemption arc. Public sentiment swung hard in Chuka's favor, sparking a groundswell of support from doctors, activists, and everyday Nigerians. Though the empire trembled, Chuka felt a surge of conviction. In the quiet of his corner office, once so suffocating, he finally breathed freely. He sent a text to Awele. "We're just getting started." A week later, the grand opening of Ziora's haven drew a cheering crowd of journalists, volunteers, and beneficiaries. The renovated colonial villa, once an Ikenna guest house, stood proudly atop a gentle hill, its arches draped with vibrant African fabrics. Mothers in bright wrappers clustered around cribs, babies cooing as community organizers guided tours. Chuka, dressed in traditional BORRAH, took the stage alongside Awele and Barrister Ibuka. He recounted the moment he found Awele in labor, spoke of his family's failings, and vowed that no mother or child in Lagos would ever face homelessness because of corporate greed. His voice trembled with emotion. When he introduced Awele to cut the ribbon, she stepped forward, robust, radiant, and unflinching. Cameras flashed as she held Ziora aloft, crying out, "This is for every woman who ever felt invisible." The crowd erupted in applause, many wiping tears from their eyes. Afterward, Awele toured the facility, a pediatric clinic, counseling rooms, and dormitories. She watched a young mother cradle her newborn in a rocking chair. Pulling Chuka aside, she whispered, "We've done something truly good." He squeezed her hand, pride and love shining in his gaze. In the weeks that followed, Awele and Chuka slipped into a quiet rhythm behind the headlines. They shared early morning coffee on the haven's veranda, Ziora nestled between them. He taught her boardroom basics, she taught him nursery rhymes in Igbo. One evening, after a long day of sponsor meetings, Chuka found Awele alone by the reflecting pool, the water shimmering under lantern light. She looked up, vulnerability still there but softened by trust. "You've given me so much," she said softly. "A home, a purpose, and maybe love?" Chuka knelt beside her, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I love you, Awele. Not for what we did together, but for who you are, resilient, compassionate, unbreakable." Tears glistened in her eyes. "I love you too." They embraced, the world's noise falling away. In that hushed moment, two wounded souls found healing in each other's arms and forged a bond deeper than any empire. Emboldened by their success, Awele began accepting invitations to speak on national panels, appear on morning shows, and mentor young women. Clad in vibrant head wraps and tailored Ankara dresses, she dazzled audiences with her warmth and candor. At a televised town hall on maternal health, she shared her journey, from nurse to beggar to advocate, urging policy changes to protect single mothers. Her words sparked debate in the National Assembly and inspired a grassroots movement that saw rallies in Abuja and Kano. Meanwhile, Ziora toddled at her side, waving to cameras and stealing hearts. Awele watched her daughter with a smile that lit up the screen. In every interview, she credited Chuka and Barrister Ibuka, but made it clear that true change belonged to the collective will of the people. By month's end, Awele's Law, a bill to fund emergency maternity care, had garnered enough signatures to be tabled in Parliament. Awele's voice, once silenced by betrayal, now resonated across the nation. Exactly 1 year after Awele collapsed at the mansion gates, a new scene unfolded there, a canopy of white bougainvillea arching over guests in festive attire. Cameramen lined the perimeter, but this time to capture joy, not scandal. Chuka stood beneath the arch in a crisp white suit, heart pounding as he watched Awele emerge, radiant in a simple lace gown, Ziora as flower girl in matching lace. Madame Ifunanya watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable. As Awele approached, Chuka caught her hand and whispered, "Will you marry me and build our future here, at these very gates?" Tears glimmered in her eyes. Yes, yes, 1,000 times. They exchanged vows as the sun dipped low, promising love, partnership, and a commitment to uplift every vulnerable mother and child. When they kissed, the audience erupted in cheers and applause. Later, as they danced under the lantern-lit veranda, Awele rested her head on Chuka's shoulder. He whispered, "This gate, once a barrier, has become our threshold to hope." She smiled, Ziora asleep in her arms. "And it will stand open for everyone from now on." And with that, their story, born of betrayal and reborn in redemption, came full circle, transforming a mansion's iron gates into a portal of new beginnings. The end.